So everybody on the internet wants to know whether Ryan Garcia is on drugs or not. Now, the proper question is whether he's not. It's not about whether he's on drugs or not. I think we sort of know that he is. But the question is, why? Why is he on drugs? I think that is the proper question to ask. Well, many point to the reasons of being so young and rich and famous at his age and having all the resources and money to be able to do what he wants to do. In all honesty, I think this is a cop-out and an excuse. Now, do you say this about, let's say, other Muslim athletes, such as that soccer player Hakimi guy? You know, that famous soccer player that had this story where he basically divorced his wife and she didn't get any of the money because all of his assets was under his mother's name. That guy. Do you think that all the riches that that guy has, do you think that he's going to fall into the same vices as Ryan Garcia? Absolutely not. Now, we're talking about Devin Haney, who's also 25 years old, same age as Ryan Garcia. Does he fall into that category with the likes of Ryan Garcia acting in this kind of matter, taking the type of choices that he does with the rampant drug use that has plagued his current lifestyle? And I think the answer is no. Would you say that about Khabib? No. Would you say that about Khamzat? No. Would you say that about Islam? No, absolutely not. And of course, if you follow this page long enough, and you know that I'm a mixed martial arts page, so I try to be very neutral when it comes to certain fighters that I talk about, and I try to be very objective. But as a young Muslim male, such as Devin Haney, I got to be honest and say that he doesn't have that same problem that Ryan Garcia has going on. And I think the reason is because of the Islamic ideology that comes into play. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people always try to bash me for when it comes to this Muslim fighter bias that I have. They always try to slam it as if I have this sense of supremacy complex for my people and the people that share my religion. And you know what? That is further from the truth. And let me explain why. For one, when it comes to the Islamic community, we're a very diverse community. And with that in mind, you got to understand that we come from all different backgrounds, all different, let's say, social classes, different ethnic groups, different cultural settings and regions from around the world that may influence us in a certain way, whether athletic or cultural practices or behaviors and habits and things of that nature. So we all vary in multiple ways. But the one thing that we all have in common in the Islamic faith is that there are just certain things that we don't do. And sometimes when you want to analyze the kicks and the punches and the techniques and the physical attributes of an athlete, you often forget that sometimes it is just about what it is that you don't do. And what do I mean by that? Well, don't do drugs. That's a given, but the vices are there. Don't drink. Well, for Muslim guys, that's quite easy because that's one of the biggest rules that we have in a religion. But for other people, they take the route of, let's say, well, let's just do it in moderation and do it when we celebrate. And then after you celebrate, then off to the next day doing it the same thing. And then it becomes a habit and a habit, so on and so forth. Okay, so don't drink, don't do drugs. What else? Don't stay up late at night. Don't eat junk food. Okay, so some of these are easier said than done, and some of them are easier than the other. It is a lot easier to refrain from junk food, depending on who you are. And it is a lot easier refraining from alcohol, especially if you are a Muslim fighter and it is part of your religious duties. On top of that, the controversial issue of pork, that also comes into play, and how that affects your body as opposed to how that may affect your athletic performance. Obviously, different cultures have different ways of going about things, and quite frankly, I mean, maybe there's some physical adverse effects that come into pork consumption. And you let me know in the comment section below if you agree with that or not. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Muslim people around the world that may disagree with you. But once again, sometimes when it comes to preparing for a training camp, and a fight career, sometimes it is just literally what it is that you don't do. Not so much about the physical attributes, not so much about your physical skills that you've gained over the years as a result of your training and your habits and your environment, but sometimes it's really about not drinking, not doing the bad food stuff, right? Or just going about living a healthy lifestyle all throughout the years, as opposed to, let's say, somebody like Patty Pimblett, who just likes to eat whatever it is that he likes to eat, and then when it's time for crunch time and getting ready for a camp, then he'll buckle down, get the diet in, and try to catch up in a fat camp, which realistically is what it is, as opposed to just worrying about his skills while he had already maintained keeping his weight down all throughout the years. And that's the reality of this situation when it comes to people's lifestyles and what they do and what they don't do that makes them an elite fighter or not an elite fighter. Now, going into this fight with Devin Haney, you can't deny that Ryan Garcia is going to have a disadvantage. It's just obvious. And then on top of that, boxing is one of those sports where sometimes you can sort of tell 70 to 80% of the time who's going to win. And why is that? Well, for one, it is because of, let's say, just recent resumes. You look at Devin Haney, he's fought nothing but the best guys in the world and is the undisputed champion for a reason. We've seen Ryan Garcia, who is a big name, fall against Tank Davis, got finished. And then that brings a lot of question because, hey, look, it's one thing to lose a fight based on a decision, but my goodness, it is another thing to lose a fight and getting finished emphatically, knowing that you and that guy are of equal skill level, equal attributes, equal sense of speed, and maybe power. Maybe one guy has more power than the other. Maybe one guy has more speed than the other. But the fact of the matter is, elite level fighting, I'm going to just frankly say it, usually goes the distance. And why? Because that is what elite fighting does. You are in elite fighting because of the fact that you can make the distance, close the gaps, or somehow mitigate the gaps of alleviating danger, which takes a high level of concentration in the sport that is known as the sweet science, which means that when you are fighting at an elite level, you can't have any mishaps, you can't have any mistakes, you got to be on point, game tight. And that is what I notice separates high-level guys in boxing as opposed to, let's say, high-level guys in mixed martial arts. I'm sorry to say that even though this is a mixed martial arts channel and that I promote the sport, I'm an advocate of the sport, I have to say that boxing really, it has less margin of